Rise and shine riders, welcome to the channel. I've been using 50mm Rise handlebars for the last 3 months or so, and this video is basically how I'm getting on with them, what they ride like. But just before I go through that, I just want to talk about why handlebar height matters and why your cockpit matters. Let's go. So handlebars form part of your cockpit, which are a key contact point, along with things like tyres, your pedals, and your saddle. I always forget about the saddle. Contact points matter, and relatively speaking, they're probably the cheaper and easier things to change or upgrade on your bike. But before we all go to rush and buy new high-rise handlebars, there's some other things you need to think about. A key effect of increasing your handlebar height is you're going to put a little bit less weight on the front and naturally get your body position a bit further back on the bike. But other things you need to think about, just to start with, bar roll. So your existing handlebars, due to the sweep, if you have them roll back or roll forward, that's going to reduce or increase the height of your handlebars. It will also have the effect, if you roll them forward, of putting a bit more weight on the front, a la Jackson Goldstone, a good example of extreme front sort of bar roll. But you can play about with that first before you necessarily go to rush and sort of buy new handlebars. Don't also forget your stem length. So a longer stem, again, is going to give you more reach, put you more forward over the bars. A shorter stem can obviously get you back a bit in that sense. So maybe think about your stem length as well. And if you've got a spare stem that's longer or shorter, you could play about with that. And there's your bar width to consider. So wider bars are going to bring you sort of lower down, get the bars a bit closer to your chest. Narrower bars are going to obviously sit you a bit more upright in that sense. So that's where it's just something to bear in mind. That will also affect your body position. And one more thing you might want to consider is you can increase the spacers under your stem, assuming you've got the length in your fork steerer tube to allow you to, and raise your handlebar height that way, so you can effectively stack them up. But then the trade-off is raising your stem height on your steerer tube is going to slightly shorten your reach. So again, there's always little compromises. The reason I'm going through these things is to stress that you don't have to rush to increase your handlebar height. There's other things you can play with or should think about finding a balance with. And another good example is different bikes may suit different rise handlebars. Let's go into that. Take this bike as an example, Santa Cruz 5010 lightweight trail bike. I've got a 40mm stem, 40mm rise handlebars, but I have put a lot of spacers under the stem, so I've kind of stacked it up that way. And unlike my other bikes, I run the bars a bit narrower. These are 760mm. I run my other bikes at 780. So that's also kind of putting me back a bit rather than pulling my chest into the bars. And I've kind of used that combination of spacers and bar width and stem to find a good balance for this bike. Moving on to the next bike. This is my downhill bike. It's got a 200mm fork on it, so it's obviously naturally kind of sits quite high in that sense. It's got a 45mm stem. I've got the bar 780mm, and these are 30mm rise handlebars, but I have probably rolled them a little bit forward compared to sort of my other bikes. And again, for this sort of combination of 200mm travel, I'm not sure. I would actually be interested to try like 60, 70mm high-rise bars on this, but this feels comfortable to me. I kind of like this setup for this bike. Moving on to the next bike. And this leads me on to why I've been trying 50mm rise handlebars on my e-bike, my Turbo Levo 4, because I had space. I could have gone up a bit there on the fork steerer tube. I've got a little bit of space with the stem spacers to increase it that way. I could have obviously rolled it forward, but it's all about finding a balance for the bike you're riding for me. So also, to be honest with you, I had carbon handlebars. This came with some really nice fancy carbon handlebars. I did try them for 3 months, but I'm not a fan of carbon handlebars. No, just my thing as a rider, and that's probably a video for another day. So I wanted, interesting enough, I sold those, and the money from those actually paid for these. So that was good. So it didn't actually cost me anything. So I wanted alloy handlebars. And in the process, I thought if I go a bit higher rise, because obviously if I go up a bit on the stem, shorten the reach, but I like the reach. Also, I don't necessarily want to have lots of bar roll because I've tried it, but I prefer it that sort of way. So I've got them slightly forward, but not too much. So again, it was more for this bike, having that little bit high rise gave me kind of the overall sort of riding position for this bike, but I wouldn't necessarily rush to put these on my other bikes because I've adjusted other things to get them in a good position, if that makes sense.
Yo!
So to answer the question, how am I getting on with my 50mm rise handlebars? I kind of had to go through all that because, for this bike, I'm absolutely loving them. They suit this bike really well. I'm really happy with them, and that's achieved the cockpit, the feel I wanted on this bike. But the point I'm trying to make is, don't necessarily rush to get higher rise handlebars. They may not suit every rider, but again, experiment and try things like that if you can. But it's also, don't forget all the other adjustments you can make to your cockpit, and it's finding that balance that suits you. And adjusting other things may mean you don't necessarily need higher rise you may even need lower rise handlebars if you play about and experiment enough. It's whatever suits your riding style is the point. But these are excellent handlebars. And for me in this bike, perfect. So yeah, that's the video. Any comments, let me know. And thank you so much for watching. Until next week, ride your bike. Yo.
No.